Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. You're watching Quran and Science. And after we listen to these two holy verses, I'd like to ask first my brothers what were the meanings that they got from these verses before we go into discussion and explanation of these verses. So I'll start first with Abdurrahman Ismail. Concerning the first verse, what is the meaning that you're getting out of this verse?
I understand from the verse that Allah is telling us that He has paved this earth for us and made it a resting place, and has made this perfect construction of the sky, and He has provided us with all the bounties on earth in order for us to believe in Him. However, people sometimes knowingly disbelieve in Him.
Yes. Okay, before moving to the second verse, I'd like to ask you, what is the meaning that you can extract out of it? Because it carries lots of meanings, actually.
Yeah, it just gave me a sign of the power of Allah that made this beautiful world by send down the water from the sky. And so with this water we can produce very beautiful flowers that color this world, and getting fruits for to sustain.
Once you listen to the words ثمرات and وأنزل من السماء ماء, how do you feel about these words? What does it direct your mind to?
Direct my mind to look to the beautiful fruits and flowers that Allah created just for to sustain for as servers, and for us just to believe in God and not set up revels, as He mentioned in this verse.
Okay.
They also make us feel the greatness of Allah. I mean, how Allah has turned this stone into beautiful flower or meaningful fruit that can give us food, and this is a miracle, of course.
So it makes you feel some sort of appreciation to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
to feel the greatness of Allah's creatures.
Okay. Now let's move to Dr. Zaghlul's opinion about the first verse before we go into the coming one.
I begin in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our creator, the creator of the universe and everything that's in it. And I greet you all in our Islamic way, and our audience as well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace, blessings and mercy be with you all. This verse comes in the context of advising people to worship Allah alone, without parallels, partners or similars, and exalting Allah above all His creation. It reads, يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. O people, worship your Lord who has created you and created the people before you, so that you may heed Allah, you may heed your Creator. And then he comes to presenting some signs of the greatness of that Creator. Says, الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون. Do not have anybody in worship, in association with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anybody, anything. Because shirk or associating others with Allah is equal to kufr, is equal to disbelieving in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you come to the verse, الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا. In a previous episode we mentioned that the earth started by a highly rugged topography. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has caused the various forces He has created in the atmosphere of the earth. The wind, running water, glaciation, variation of temperature, gravity, to try to level that surface. And we have in geology a process called peniplanation. There is a tendency in the system Allah has placed in our earth to try to get any elevation above the sea level to the sea level. The process of peniplanation. Yes. So we have external processes like wind, running water, glaciation, variation of temperature between day and night and between the different seasons. We have gravity, we have plants, we have animals.
All of these are a process of
peniplanation, you see. They tend to bring all elevations to sea level. And at the same time, we have internal processes that try to build up what has been peniplaned.
Yes.
So every mountain can come down to a sea level, and every sea level can rise up in the form of a mountain. And the continuity of that process is one of the main reasons of making life on that planet a very rich life. So Allah is showing His bounties upon us by leveling the ground. And that's why He said, الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ فِرَاشًا. He has leveled the surface of the earth for your convenience, as if it is, what could I say, a bed actually.
Yes,
something you
like
can,
something like that you can sleep on, something that you
sleep
can
on.
be comfortable on.
Like the cradle of a little baby.
Yes.
You see, الذي جعل الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء. We mentioned again in another episode that everything in that universe is governed by gravity, is
Yes.
governed by certain powers that keep it in position.
The unseen pillars that we discussed in the previous episodes.
Yes, and otherwise, you see, this could have collapsed on the earth, you
Yes.
see. So Allah is again showing His bounties upon us, that He has made the firmament a very well-established construction.
Yes.
Everything in it is very precisely calculated. The powers and the forces governing these bodies is very precisely calculated. Otherwise, this universe can collapse.
So these are like guiding points to every human being to be thinking and to be thinking in a way that things are not random,
not chaos.
and it's very organized
Yes.
and very
Yes.
well calculated and done by Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Subhanahu wa ta'ala.
to guide you that this is for
is
your
your Lord.
comfort.
This is some
for
quality to your
comfort,
Lord, yes.
and some bounties to you.
وأنزل من السماء ماء. This reflects on what we call the water cycle around the earth. We read in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has gushed all the water on the surface of that planet from within the earth. والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها. So we have 1.4 billion cubic kilometers of water which Allah has pushed it all from within the earth.
Yes.
And at the same time we read many verses that Allah has sent down rain from the sky. You see, and somebody thought that, is there a contradiction there? Once he says the water came from within the earth, and other verses he says وأنزل من السماء ماء مبارك وأنزل من السماء ماء طهورا.
Yes.
This reflects about the cycle of water around the earth. And the water cycle is a testimony for the wisdom and knowledge and power of the Creator. Because if this water remained stagnant, it would have rotted in no time. Because in every cubic millimeter of water, we virtually have billions of living beings that live and die in it.
Yes.
And unless the water is moved away from this, it would have rotted in the first place, would have been absolutely useless. So Allah causes the sun rays to evaporate the water from seas and oceans, and from ponds and lakes and rivers, and from the respiration of humans and animals, from the wetting of plants, you see. This water vapor rises up to find Allah has prepared for it a cool surface at minus 60 degrees centigrade. It condenses and comes down. When it is evaporated, it leaves behind all the dirt and filth that was laid in it, all the salts that it dissolved, passing by the surface of the ground. So it is purified. And that's why Allah says, وَأَنزَلْ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا. And Allah has sent down from the sky a purified water. وَأَنزَلْ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً مُبَارَكًا, blessed water. Without this cycle, life on the surface of that planet would have virtually been impossible. And that's why Allah says, as signs of His greatness, as signs of His might and power and wisdom, الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم. Without this water, no plantation could have ever existed. No fruits, no vegetables, no food for anybody. وأخرج من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون. Again, emphasizing on glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala above any associates.
Okay. Now let's move for a very short break and return back to have more questions about this verse and also to explain the second verse to our viewers.
Yeah.
And with this, we leave you with a very short break and return back, so stay tuned. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back. You're watching Quran and Science, and we were just discussing the earth as a level surface. And now we'll move to some questions from my dear brothers. I'll start first with Zabihullah.
Okay, my question is, Professor, if we look to the universe, we think about it, we can find that this world is very colorful. What if it was black and white?
What?
If it was
black and white?
Black and white, yes. Again, this is one of the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yani to multiply the colors, to multiply the colors of fruits, of flowers, of plants, of clothes, of the faces of people. You see, this again, one of the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if you are faced with a single color or a single feature, you will get bored of it. Whatever beautiful it may be, you will get bored of it. So variation of the creation is one of the greatest bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay, and the second question, from where this plants get colors? The same water every plant's getting.
You see, the Quran also mentions this. وَنُفَضِّلُ بَعْضَهَا عَلَى بَعْضٍ فِي الْأُكُلِ يعني. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given every plant, every seed, as it starts germinating and growing into the form of a plant, has given this seed or the roots of that plant the capacity to select certain elements and certain compounds from within the soil. And that's why you will get two plants next to each other. They are growing on the same soil, watered by the same water, and each will give a fruit with different color, different taste, different flavor. And this is again one of the greatness of the wisdom and might and knowledge of the Creator.
And my third question is, everything is living through this water. The
Everything
water
is living.
Through the water. Because
Yeah.
of water, everything is living.
Yes.
So, despite the uses of this water, why the amount of water is not decreasing?
Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is quoted to have said, ما من عام بأمطر من عام ولكن الله يصرفه أو ما من عام بأقل مطرا من عام ولكن الله يصرفه. There are no two successive years with different quantities of water, but Allah redistributes it according to His own knowledge and His own will and His own wisdom. What does this mean? See, when the Bedouins in Arabia listened to this from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they said, "O Messenger of Allah, some years we have drought, not a drop of water can come down, and some years we have drowning floods. What do you mean? ما من عام بأمطر من عام? What do you mean? There is not 1 year that has got more rain than the other." Only very recently, scientists came to prove that the amount of water that is evaporated from the surface of the earth is a fixed amount, 380,000 kilometers per year. And these come back drop by drop. Nothing is left in the air, but with a new distribution. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, ما من عام بأمطر من عام ولكن الله يصرفه أو ما من عام بأقل مطر من عام ولكن الله يصرفه.
Okay, Abdurrahman.
Dr. Zahul, we hear about certain ages where some places were more rainy than others. I mean, now if you go to Europe, you will notice that it's raining all the time. Was there a point when Egypt was as green as Europe and was raining all the time like this?
So the question is that in Europe you'll find rain most of the time of the year,
Yes.
and actually most of the time of the day.
Yes.
So is there a reason of having like countries like Egypt with less amounts of rain and less greenery areas like Europe?
Yes.
He's not envying Europe or anything.
Yes.
So he's just
No.
Just
Actually, Allah, through His wisdom, distributes the rain according to His own plan. He can give a country lots of rain and deprive another country from rain. And this must have reason with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If the people are good and committed to the divine guidance and not betraying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah can give them. if the people know the true religion and they try to drift away from it and depart from the divine guidance, of course Allah will punish them as a way of awakening them, as a way of reminding them. But things do not remain constant. You see, Europe less than 2 million years ago was glaciated in the last great ice age, and the ice killed everything, killed the plants, killed the animals, and humans tried to migrate to different areas. Now Europe is green. We are going towards another phase of glaciation, and if this phase begins, North America and North Europe will be glaciated, and the desert area extending from Mauritania in the west to Afghanistan in the east will be enjoying heavy rain, and most of the dry valleys in these deserts will be flowing rivers, and most of the arid areas will be covered by plantation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is distributing his bounties according to his own will and according to his own knowledge and according to his own wisdom.
So we have something like a weather rotation cycle.
Yes.
But this, of course,
Yes,
takes
yes,
thousands of
indeed.
years.
But it's not random, and it's not at a fixed plan. It goes with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Subhanallah. But this triggers in my mind the question of climate change.
Yes.
Will climate change really change the weather, or it's just the rotation cycle of weather?
You see, climate changes, that's true.
By pollution or...
We have a system that tailored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the change of climate. But the interference of man can sometimes disrupt this plan. And disrupting it, Allah leaves it to man as a source of punishment. And that's why Allah says, ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون. So ill doings will flood everywhere, as we see these days, on land and sea. And land also includes the atmosphere above the land, and the sea includes the atmosphere above the sea. So in every environment, these ill doings will cause man to suffer. And this suffering is a way of awakening man. لعلهم يرجعون.
So
Probably they may return back to their creator.
it will expedite the process of weather changing.
It will disrupt it. It will not expedite it. It will disturb it. Nowadays we have areas that never had rain. These areas are currently suffering flooding. We had areas that had regular rain, and nowadays they are suffering from aridity, and so on. But you see, if there is a normal change in the climatic conditions, it corrects itself by itself. But if it is caused by human intrusion, Allah leaves it to man.
Yes.
You see, leaves it to man. No.
Okay, yeah, I have a question regarding we were discussing the Earth as a level surface, although it's not really uniform. Why is Allah mentioning the perfection of the sky, and we have the Earth which we are living on not really uniform and not really perfect as the sky?
You see, everybody in the sky is worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in great obedience and submitting to the will of Allah in great obedience. Only on earth Allah has created a creation with a free will.
Yes.
And for human beings and jinn.
Yes.
We are free-willed beings, and that's why Allah has brought us here to be tested. And He's leaving us, you see, either we can correct our own mistakes or suffer by it. So here we are suffering from the ill deeds of human beings and jinn.
Okay. And the second question is about earthquakes.
Yes.
The verse says الأرض فراشا, but at the same time we find earthquakes that actually has some sort of destructions to many homes and many lives. What is the scientific reason behind the earthquakes, and how do you link it to this verse?
You see, there is a great difference between the description of the earth as farash, as a low-lying area that is easily accessible to man and is making life easy for man. This is the meaning of frashan, you see.
Yes.
But earthquakes come from the movement of the lithospheric plates, the plates that constitute the outer rocky cover of the earth move either away from each other or collide with each other, towards each other until they collide. As a result of that collision, the friction resulting from that collision creates earthquakes.
Yes.
I was asked after the tsunami event, what do you think of what happened? I said, this is one of the soldiers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which Allah sends as a means of punishment to ill-doers, as a means of testing for good people, and as a reminder for those who will survive that event. And then secularists started screaming at me, how come you say this? We know the mechanism of an earthquake 100%. Why refer it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But if you read in the Quran, you will see clearly that there is no punishment that takes place on the surface of that planet without an ill-doer. And there is no reward without a good doer. And Quran spells that beautifully. And in Surah Al-Nahl, we find a Quranic description of how an earthquake can take place. And it shows clearly this is a sheer result of ill-doers and a test for good ones.
Exactly. So it could be a punishment, and also it could be a test.
Test, a trial, yes. And the Prophet was asked, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, O Messenger of Allah, أَنَهْلَكُ وَفِينَ الصَّالِحُونَ, could we really be destroyed? And we have some pious people. He said, yes. ثُمَّ يُبْعَثُ النَّاسُ عَلَى نَوَايَاهُمْ. People will be resurrected, each with his own intention and his own will.
Okay, one final question. It's about the last verse, which is وَالْأَرْضُ فَرَشْنَاهَا فَنِعْمَ الْمَاهِدُونَ.
Now,
so we need to know more about فَنِعْمَ الْمَاهِدُونَ.
because if you can calculate the amount of energy that was exerted to penetrate the surface of the earth, all the wealth of the wealthy people and the non-wealthy people, all the wealth of the human beings,
yes,
will not be enough to pay for it.
Yes.
The amount of energy executed to level the surface, to cut down valleys, to cut down passageways for canyons, as you mentioned, another place. This is an immense quantity,
yes,
of money that nobody can pay. So Allah says, فَنِعْمَ الْمَاهِدُونَ. Yani the best of those who could pave ways for you in this life is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Professor Zaghlul Naggar, we thank you very much for being
Barakallah
here.
feek.
It was a pleasure to have you here
Barakallah
with
feek.
us at Huda TV. And I also like to thank Abdurrahman and Zabihullah for being here with us. With this, my dear viewers, my dear brothers, we come to the end of this edition of Quran and Science. See you in the next edition. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.